holding very still without being rigid. Just observe whatever moves in the mind stream. Thoughts, memories, emotions, plans, criticisms, negativity of various kinds, even positive things. Just observe. Make no comment. Just observe. Those of you in Zendo, please gather in front of the altar. Those of you on Zoom, please turn toward your computer screen. Thank you. So this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about something I talk about all the time, just same talk, different title. But it's about encouraging you to do something that's quite difficult to do, and that's receive. So this evening's talk is titled Receive the Fragrance, kind of a positive way of saying receive what stinks. Receive, no matter what shows up in your mind stream in any of the sense fields, just using the sense of smell. There's a teaching in the Tibetan tradition called Rochig, which is Tibetan for one taste. Using that particular sense consciousness, there's something constant. So, one taste. It's not that everything tastes the same. It's just that there's one taste. Find out. Don't take it from me. Don't believe what I say. Don't believe anything anybody says. Don't believe any of your thoughts. Don't believe. Don't believe. Don't disbelieve. Don't ignore. Those three. It's the three poisons. That's what ties us up in knots and causes us to go to war with ourselves, go to war with others, or take whole countries to war if we happen to be in a position to be in control or in apparent control of things. Seems to be necessary to practice on our own mind stream. This is what Shikantaza, sitting practice of meditation, is about. We sit down and we watch this and that and this and that, and on, commentary after commentary, analysis, conclusions, judgments about others, about ourselves, about anything. So what's being said? Don't conclude. Don't do anything with it. If a conclusion just comes out of nowhere and you find yourself believing this or disbelieving that, then just observe that. Keep it very simple, very precise, very direct. So if something shows up as being conclusive immediately, then don't disagree with that. We're not saying go in and say, don't conclude, don't scold yourself at all. No lectures. Just observe it. It's the observing of the conclusion and the observing of the refutation or the observing of feeling happy. Just receive. Don't look for cause. Causation is there, but causation is way beyond your ability to trace anything. You're just a little tiny dot in the middle of nowhere. And that might be an exaggeration. There isn't anyone. If you think you are someone, you'll continue to fight with things, agree with things, and ignore things. Simply put, if you realize your true nature, you're not separate from anything. There's no more war. That doesn't mean you don't see a war going on. You just don't pick and choose. You don't take sides because you understand deeply that the one who looks like they're to blame, and the one who looks like they're a victim, is a big, I'll give you one more big misunderstanding. You don't have to participate in that kind of crap. You can actually liberate yourself from this incredible confusion, this incredible delusion, this incredible illusion, which is unreal, but it is relatively right in our face all the time, over and over again. It's relatively very painful. As we know, we have nerve endings. As the Buddha said 2,500 years ago, and I've been repeating this ever since I began to understand it, which wasn't that long ago. Life is suffering. You don't even need the other three. Oh, what are they? Life is a blast. Life is sucks. Well, that's the first one. Life, well, you know, maybe you don't. But life is suffering. You have nerve endings. And as long as there's a physical form, there's going to be difficulty or suffering or pain. The difference is I've been saying a lot for a while, to say again, apologize if I'm boring you, that what you will realize that there's no personhood, there's no person, there's no individual. Your consciousness doesn't belong to you, it doesn't belong to anybody. It has no form, has no shape, has no location. You think it does, you'll continue to spin looking for what? Something else, something else. There isn't anything else. Everything is empty of else and full of what it is. And what is it? Awake. It's just awake. The entire thing is awake. Excuse me. This needs to be seen by you. When I say seen, not just visual, but mental, possibly working in the sense field somewhere. The entirety of your situation. And when you're walking across the floor, going from the kitchen to the living room or something, just very simple motion from here to there, a simple emphasis on the illusion of location, the illusion that you're here and you're going over there. Nothing happens. If you think it, if you take what happens in terms of the illusion and you conclude anything about it, you reify, substantiate, and reinforce the original understanding, which is a mistaken identity. That there is no personhood here. There's just consciousness only. Return to your true nature while you're still embodied. Don't wait until you die, because then you're going back there no matter what, unless you're loaded with passion, aggression, and ignorance, in which you can go to one of the other realms besides the human realm. Not too comfortable. You don't think you can be reborn as an animal? What do you think I'm going to say? Think again? No, I'm saying don't think about it. You won't know it though, because you'll be an animal. And will you be an animal? No, because there isn't any separate being. But as long as there is something separating itself out, consciousness is perfectly happy to oblige you and take you right wherever you think you are, or wherever you think you're going, or wherever you think you're not going to. Consciousness is totally happy to do that. Just a way of talking about it. Fundamentally, nothing happens. Is there a question at this point?
Divine, you said it's all awake. What do you mean by awake?
Everything is awake. That's what I mean by it. Consciousness is just awake. It's not awake as opposed to asleep. It's just awake. But it's not awake to anything other than consciousness. But you or me or any of us, because of the causes and conditions that drive us around in these 6 realms, this way and that way, and shutting down, opening up, going over here, fighting with this, agreeing with that, passion, aggression, and then passion. The fundamental nature of consciousness, you separated yourself out from by being a living being. You did not make a choice here, but choice was made. A kind of choice was made probably 50 lifetimes ago, if not more, maybe countless. But it's just a way of talking about it. Actually, there are no lifetimes. It's an illusion. But as long as you believe the illusion, then it appears to happen. It's like believing a dream. In the middle of the night, and you start to dream something, and suddenly things go awry in the dream, and the next thing you know, you're terrified of something, you're worried about something, or you're just so disappointed because this is happening or that. You might even not even be the same person. You might be dreaming you're someone else. Some people are able to, when I say able, some people just do that. They dream that they're other beings. Nothing occurs. This doesn't mean that when you look around, everything just stops happening. No. what is being said here, what is being pointed at here is everything that is happening is an illusion. So therefore you could say, well, if it's an illusion, then nothing really happens. Bingo. You're hurting my feelings if you don't laugh. You laugh. That's a snicker. So I'm not saying that's easy. I'm not saying, oh, I'll just, I didn't Sokuzan say so. I'll just stop believing my thoughts. And no, it's hard work. It's a hard work of intention. You know, this is why we need the vow. This is why this has been going on for centuries, that human beings have come onto this path and have studied under teachers who have given them a hard time because of the wish to help them see the truth before the whole thing comes to an end, meaning this particular lifetime. Yes.
When you're bowing, when you say, don't believe your thoughts,
Yes.
who or what is the, don't, who are you directing that to?
Consciousness.
Is that consciousness separated out?
The consciousness I'm addressing is just consciousness, but the consciousness that is going to hear it for a while is going to be the consciousness that thinks that he, she, they are some being in a particular body form. This is why we have this monastery. This is why people go to the mountaintop. This is why people come in here and sit down and dedicate the rest of their life to sitting here looking at the wall and get very, very exasperated doing that. And sometimes leave, maybe later come back, and then sometimes leave and never come back. That is their business. I'm here to present this to you. If you're ready to hear it, I'm ready to tell you about it. Not because I have the corner on the truth. There is no corner. There is no truth. That's the truth. Don't believe it. Consider it. Consider what I'm saying. I'm saying this in such a way that I'm pointing to something that can't be described. You can't describe this. You can't. If you describe it, you're lying. I don't care how succinct or beautiful or iridescent your conceptual structure is about the nature of reality. I don't care if you are Oppenheimer or anyone else. You can't do this with the thinking process. You can turn cartwheels with it, but you can't see the truth by thinking about it. Thinking is a very limited area that is can be extremely powerful and using in a relative way, of course. Look what we did. What a wonderful thing to do with the mind, build an atomic bomb and then murder lots of people. Not so good, not such a good use of intelligence.
Kelsey Bowen, when we describe our experience to you as our teacher, how is that not turning cartwheels?
It may be. You think that's what you're doing?
Sometimes.
Okay. What does the teacher say? Pardon me.
You say to share with you.
Huh?
To share with you.
What?
You tell me to tell you about my experience.
Yes, I do. So what's the question?
Kelsey Bowen, how do we make sure that's not just
That doesn't matter. It's only about awareness. You don't have to succeed in anything. You don't have to be anybody other than who you are. But being who you are, it can be very scary and very uncomfortable because who wants to be crazy? Who wants to be confused? But what we do is we fight with the confusion and build up some kind of idea or conclusion about things so we don't have to look at that because it is extremely embarrassing, or it's extremely whatever, and we want to find some way to get out of that. We'll blame others, blame ourselves, maybe blame our teacher. That happens too. All kinds of things, and it's necessary to just receive the fragrance, receive the odor, receive the disgusting smell, no matter what it is. Whatever shows up, receive. Whatever shows up, receive. Whatever goes away, observe it, leave. Don't chase it. Don't do anything with it. Just observe what's happening until you see that nothing occurs. The way you see that is you see that everything excuse me, that's occurring is unreal. So that things still occur, they come and they go, they might get larger, might get more difficult. Excuse me, might get more negativity rising in your mind stream. Especially once, if you want to say it that way, you begin to just receive everything no matter what. No matter what. Receive it no matter what. Once you start to do that, then the shit that you really need to be looking at starts to show up. Instead of you, like some people like to say, you've meditated for 20 years now, you're finally feeling better. You may never feel better. How many people are going to tell you that? I don't know. 5. I'm telling you, you may have to feel like crap the rest of your life. But what can be an understanding is that there is no solid being that's going through that. And then that's the path of the Bodhisattva. When you realize there's no self, first boom, there isn't anyone. And so therefore it doesn't matter what you feel. And therefore you can dedicate your life to others, service of others. Even though they're maybe not being so nice to you, maybe they're mistreating you, all the better. Receive it anyway. That doesn't mean buy into their craziness and do what they say or any of that, or make it look like just you are a kind, loving person. It doesn't matter what people think. If it matters what people think, you won't be able to teach because you'll be too worried about people thinking you're not a good teacher. More.
Thank you.
Less. Good area for questions if you have them. Anyone on Zoom?
Navid Bowing.
Naveed, I'll get you in a minute after I respond to Naveed's. Unless you didn't really mean that you had a question. I saw your hand go up and down really quick. So, Donald, didn't have a question?
Are you talking to me or Naveed?
No, I'm talking to you right now. I'm just saying maybe you didn't have a question. Could you
Skip me.
skip you? No problem. Can do that.
Navid
Okay,
Bowing.
Naveed, go ahead.
Can receiving be called receiving without passion, aggression, and ignorance? Bowing.
Yes. Because the passion, if you're receiving and a passion arises, then you may push or explain or justify or condemn or any number of things with passion against what's arising. We set up that artificiality we call duality. That's happening, and this is what we think about, or that's happening. And even if it's relatively correct, it doesn't matter. It's just that you cannot agree, disagree, or ignore anything. If you do, then the circularity called samsara, the relentless turning of night and day, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, life and death. That's the big one, life and death. This continues. If you see through one delusion, you see through all, but you have to see it thoroughly. Go ahead, Naveed.
Navid Bowing. So without passion, aggression, and ignorance, does receiving happens? Bowing.
Yes, but it's not about getting rid of passion, aggression, and ignorance. It's about being aware of them. If you're aware of them, they may still come and go because the karma that is behind you that caused you to enter this particular realm of the human beings, this particular area, it might still have more work to do after you realize your true nature. You may have really realized your consciousness as it shows up as ego may have been seen through. You see through that, then you may not add on to your karma. This is the vow that transcends karma, to be with all things. You're no longer at war with anything. You're no longer at peace with anything, and you're no longer ignoring anything. Now, this doesn't mean that relatively you wouldn't ignore a bird out here. If there's a big racket over here, just the distraction would keep you from doing that. So I'm not saying there's some kind of omniscience going on, although that is possible. So what I'm getting at here is that the karma that is behind this particular lifetime may not be done with you. But since you have understood, you've realized the truth of not to, you've realized that nothing is separate from anything else, then the karma that is arising in your mind stream, the negative thoughts and emotions that are still arising, you're no longer concerned with them. This doesn't mean they don't hurt, and it doesn't mean they're not painful. It just means that you don't reject it because you understand paticca samuppada, dependent origination. You understand it all the way to the bottom of your feet, all the way out the top of your head. You understand that. And it's not a series of thoughts or concepts about dependent origination. It's the actual seeing that there isn't anything else. Everywhere you look, you don't see anything else. Everything is empty of what? Other. Empty. It's a realization, not a series of thoughts. Go ahead, sir.
Like, about, could we say like one taste that there's just one emotion?
You could say that there's just emotion. And so, but we don't necessarily color it with things, although it might color itself. Because the karma that brought you here may not be done with you. You might have enough. You might be well favored enough to run into the Dharma, run into a true teacher. But you may have some work to do to actually realize that deeply. And there may be other kinds of places to trip. Very easy to get disappointed about, especially if you've been working a long time. Meditation practice, to start to feel disappointed because you're not getting anywhere. That's ego. That's ego. There's nowhere to get. The illusion of location, the ego just feeds on that. The illusion of I'm over here and I'm not feeling so good, instead of saying I don't feel so good because one of the causes is because life is suffering. Go ahead, sir.
Like, about, is that the value of continuing on the path?
Yes, just continue no matter what, because I can't tell you what kind of crap you're going to run into 3 months from now or 5 years. I'm just saying, just do it anyway, because the original intention to see the truth is what transcends karma. The vow to be with all things. I vow to be. I'm going to be with this no matter what. Nothing can dissuade me from this. It's kind of a transcendental stubbornness about it. But it's not even stubbornness, because it's not about planting your feet. It's not about some kind of fixation. It's not fixation. It's constantly moving and moving and moving, because it is what? An illusion. You can see it. You can do this. I will help you as long as I'm here. When I'm not here, then this community will help you. And this teaching will help you. Don't give up.
Does consciousness create forms based on our thinking mind?
Yes. So, but it's just about observing, man. You don't have to stop it. It's not about any control. I'm not saying there aren't teachers out there that will teach you ways to control your mind. Of course, but I'm not going to tell you that. I say you need to see it. You need to see it yourself. And it's not seeing with the eyes. It's not seeing with any particular sense. It's a complete seeing that includes everything. Everything.
If there's no form, what does this indicate?
If there's no form, what does this indicate? I don't know. What do you think?
Is there still that consciousness?
What do you mean by consciousness?
I understand that consciousness is everything.
Okay.
So I'm asking if there is a consciousness without any form.
Without forms? What are forms? What I'm saying find out. Don't get your answers from me. I know. What I'm saying is not a bragging point. Oh, Sokuzan, he knows a lot. Pretty wise guy. No, it's not relative stuff. It's not a reference point. You can't lean on it. You can't, because it's so incredibly vast and without limits that even the idea of limits is limiting. The idea of no limits is limiting. It's vast and profound, can't be found, can't be located. And why? Because there's no one that can see it. Why? Because there isn't any. Why? You can't really find yourself, because you are yourself. You are what this is. Realize it. Realize it. So you need to see it. You can see it today, you can see it tomorrow. Has to be a strong intention and has to be some kind of consistent. As far as I'm concerned, I'm very biased here, consistent, returning to stillness, returning to silence, returning to observing without concluding. You may have to watch yourself conclude passion, aggression, and ignorance for years before the conclusion just comes to a halt. You didn't even do anything. Path of grace. That's her name. You just don't do it anymore. No one came in and said, well, I used to think that was this, and then I used to, but then all of a sudden it just went away. And why? Because I stopped believing my thoughts. You want to even be able to say that? It's worse than that. It's better than that. It's liberation. If you're interested, this is the path. This is a path. I'm not saying it's the only one. You can do that. Yes.
When you're bowing, so when we are born, we're separated out into a separate being. So duality
That's the illusion.
is with
Right.
us
Mhm.
from the very beginning. So
I mean,
is,
you're born and you're right away, you're in the middle of a big stew pot of other stuff.
yes,
Yes. What's a question?
so is the invitation then to see what the reality is, that we really aren't separate? Why would consciousness do that?
Do what?
Separate out into forms only to invite us to see that we're not separate.
It does a lot of things. Warfare, peace there, any kind of positionality. It's just the world is just take a look. Well, look on CNN or look on anything. Look on the news, listen to people right in our community. Go to a city commission meeting, see the incredible insanity that's out there. You can't step in the middle of something that has started centuries and centuries of timeless. It's been going on forever. War after war after war, more wars, people justifying wars, people thinking it's not really a war, they're defending your country, and just endless stuff about trying to control others. And what is this run by? The illusion that there are others. The illusion that somebody across the room is somehow less deserving of respect and kindness than you are or someone else is. Just because we judge them by how they're acting, what they think, what their beliefs are, and so on.
When you're bowing, so as aspiring bodhisattvas who may not have seen the truth, how can we be of help to others bowing?
Start out by not meddling with them. Be respectful of people's, even though you see someone who's confused and are acting this way or that way, be respectful of their confusion. And one of the ways to do that is just listen to them. You might watch them spin and spin, and you might conclude that they're not deserving of your attention because they're so nuts, or because they're picking on you or accusing you of something. That's your opportunity. If you are a bodhisattva, if you receive this vow, either formally or informally, to be with all things, to be with that person that's so difficult to be with. I don't get to pick and choose my students. Most of you are so crazy, it's just hard to put up with. You know who you are. And of course, I'm joking. I'm that my whole life is about this. And it is not easy. But you just do it anyway. Just do it anyway. You can do it. Every one of you can do this. If you're here, if you move this direction this long, just continue to go. Receive everyone. Be kind to everyone. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when asked to characterize the nature of his religion, was kindness. Say that's correct. And Adriana.
Adriana bowing. My students are all crazy too, Sokuzan.
Go ahead.
What is the fear that arises when I look at dependent origination?
The fear
When I,
that, go ahead,
sorry.
please. You.
When I see myself as part of dependent origination and I intend to put others before myself, sometimes fear arises from that.
The fear comes from not seeing thoroughly that you are not a separate being. And by working with dependent origination, it looks like you're going to have to close off your identity so that you can put others before yourself. And there is no identity. So any fear that's arising means that you have not seen through that identity yet. When you see through the identity, there's no fear because there's no one left to be afraid of anything. The thing that makes it challenging is for quite a while, maybe indefinitely, fear may still arise. The causes and conditions that arise in your karma, my karma. I function as a Dharma teacher, doesn't mean that I don't have fear. I certainly have fear. There's just no one here who's afraid. So I can't find a fraidy cat anywhere. But fear still arises and it looks around, looks on the bookshelves, they're all empty. It looks down in the closet, it's empty. Looks out the window, there aren't any windows. I'm talking in this consciousness, trying to find a reference point so that somebody can get afraid. It does not happen. I'm just using that as an image. I'm not saying I don't have intense, negative, positive, neutral emotions. I do. I have them every day. I couldn't teach if I'd somehow become unemotional, unafraid, unconfused, doesn't that mean cloud in Japanese? Is that why your name is Anyo? So that's why I say nothing changes. You don't get better. You don't need to improve. You just need to stop fighting with yourselves and see that what you're fighting with is not real. You give it a reality by pushing it. You give it a reality by endorsing it or pulling on it or blaming someone. You give it that reality. It gets its reality from your consciousness that is based on belief in a self that can be harmed, belief in a self that can succeed, belief in a self. There is no one. And there's also no other. The dualistic construct is what drives the whole world crazy and causes these intense wars where millions, hundreds of thousands, not to mention millions of people who have been butchered. Yes.
Are there levels to receiving? You just said receive thoroughly. Is there?
It varies. It starts out with the intention, and then your particular karma or anyone's karma is going to be different. Some people seem to be able to receive. That doesn't mean they're somehow further ahead on the path. Some people have great difficulty receiving, but they're so intent on seeing what this is that the whole thing just blows apart, and they actually function in a different dimension. One that you could call some clarity about this. There quite often there is talked about different stages. Don't really use that. The 10 stages, 10 bodhisattva bhumis or rounds of the bodhisattva are used, but if you'll notice, you read those, they don't seem to hook together too well, even though the paramitas are used sometimes to make that make sense. But I have found that it is not particularly helpful to go right back into more concepts about the third bhumi as relates to the fifth bhumi and somebody trying to negotiate and find out what stage they're in. Well, they are in a stage, and I usually see that in a person. Not like I think, oh, it seems like Ondo's in the third bhumi or something like that. It's not that. It's just that I don't characterize it as a particular stage. I can just see that a person is certain areas, there's less fixation than there was 3 years ago. But there's still fixation on a self and another. More?
You said receive fear thoroughly. And then you just said that not everybody needs to see fear thoroughly in order to see not separate. Is that true?
What? Did I say that?
I'm clarifying.
I'm going to
what I
ask one of
heard.
the attorneys. Did I say that? Only part of it. Okay, Sano, did I say that? Okay, both attorneys are differing here, so that means you're, what? Huh?
Wrong.
Wrong. You're wrong. So I'm not saying I didn't say that, but I don't take the positionality on it. You seem to be saying about saying that I'm saying this or that, so I'm not, and I am not able to return to having said that. Did I?
I'm trying to clarify.
What do you want to know?
What do you mean by seeing, receiving fear thoroughly?
Don't add on person who's afraid. Just receive the fear. It has no horse, it has no boots, it has no saddle, has no hat, has no body. It's just fear. No one who's afraid. There's just the fear. It's raw, it's pure, it's self-existent. It doesn't have any reference to anything, including to a personhood. That has to be seen. If that's seen, then there's fear, but it doesn't last. It shows up. It's like a flash that comes up, where there's some kind of fear happening. But since you are no longer grasping in a self or rejecting a self, grasping in an other or rejecting another, you're taking no position on anything. The fear can't find a place to hang its hat, so it just dissipates. But there's no guarantee. If you start to experience fear and look for it to dissipate, it's the very nature of ego. Looking for some kind of control or some way to get rid of something or stop something. As I've said several times, I'll say it again. If you realize your true nature, you don't care how you feel. You don't care if you're afraid. If fear comes up, you just are afraid. It's like a rainstorm. It might be intense, might get all wet, might get hit with hail, but it's just conditionality. It's just dependent origination. It's coming and going, and it is no longer operating under the auspices of a separate self or an internal dictator.
Wonderful. How do we see the identity that grasps that fear? So
Just-
when the emotion arises, what do we,
Watch the grasping. But don't, quite often what happens, if we have an emotion, anger or jealousy, something, we try to push that away. Because there's a self there that doesn't want that. So we try to push away the anger or the dependent origination, which has a right to be there. It's dependently arisen. It's, even though it's an illusion, this caused that within the illusion. So all you have to do, simply put, is just receive it. Receive all the shit that arises, like the title of the talk. Receive the fragrance, receive the odor, receive the negativity, so that you can see that it's okay for this to come and go. Not that it needs your okay approval, but things can just come and go. And if you do that, then that part of consciousness that is curled up into a ball of hatred or a ball of fear and wants to just beat up on something or close off and run away, or I'll just leave. I'm not getting my way. I'm not getting what I want. I'll just do something else. Well, go ahead, but don't trash your life. Please don't miss your life. Stay here. If you're here, stay here no matter what. Practice this path. If you can only sit on the cushion once a week and look at the wall, at least do that. But don't trash the whole thing out. You stumbled, not because I'm so wonderful, because I'm pointing at something that you might want to take a look at before you pass from this particular realm of the human beings. In other words, die.
wonderful. So when we're receiving, do we also look at the receiver?
You would see that there isn't one. You receive and you just watch, and you see that which is receiving is consciousness, but it's not an identity. It's just consciousness receiving. It's just hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, feeling, thinking. That's why you don't hear me teaching label thoughts and return to the breath like I was taught. I'm gonna do that. I'm not saying you can't. Someone can do that if they want. I don't teach it, but I'm talking about looking directly at what this is. It's not gradual. form. Sanho,
Uh, Is there a difference between playfulness and frivolousness?
playful, is there a difference between playfulness and frivolousness? Yes. Playfulness would be having no agenda, but noticing the juxtaposition of ideas and thoughts and emotions and being involved in that in some way, where you have a lighthearted attitude. You're not concerned about outcomes, but you're very much enjoying the causes and conditions as they come and go. It's like dancing or like music. Frivolousness would be more like having some kind of an agenda about trying to be funny, having some kind of to be the life of the party, so to speak, or someone who creates music with the idea of becoming a famous musician, rather than just working with creativity in such a way that you're just looking for what this balance is. You're just looking, whether it's a painting, whether it's poetry, you're completely alone with what you're doing. So you're not, if you do it otherwise, you can do that, but it's more like commercial art, which is in the line of the mundane path of success and failure. And that's perfectly okay too, but it's not in the line of humor and frivolity. More? Yes, sir. Yes.
So when you say receive the fear thoroughly, and it's not referencing a person, is that fear what I would call free flowing? And there's no claim until we grasp at it?
You watch yourself do that every day. You're just free flowing and then something happens and then you clamp down on it, don't you?
Yes.
But that's where that question's coming from. But you can't maintain free flowing. That's also ego. Go ahead.
Can we maintain personhood?
No, but that's where the suffering comes from. But trying to maintain somebody is going somewhere, someone that's not going to, that can stay out of danger, or someone that can protect themselves. This is what, if you get really tortured in any situation, a relationship or anything, you try to change it somehow, that's about maintaining personhood. Not saying that you should stay in a relationship that's not working for you or something. That would be up to you. But if you're listening to me, I say don't do anything unless you absolutely have to make any changes, because quite often changes are made on misinformation about everything. The only true information is no information. I mean that. I'm not just being frivolous. I'm saying is that you don't really need to know what is going to happen next, because there is no next. Time, the future, the past are illusions. There's only this. Realize your true nature right now, right here, on this spot. Find out who you are. Don't settle for any kind of explanation from me or from anyone. You find out. You turn within, face the wall. Do it for the rest of your life. Go ahead.
When you're bowing, so is this consciousness finding itself in all these forms that have arisen?
Consciousness doesn't belong to anyone. And once you realize that your own consciousness is not your property, there's no self, so there can't be anyone's property. And your consciousness is just spread all over the place like apple butter. Nice, apple butter. Sugar-free, of course. Kelsey.
Kelsey Vaughn. If I notice that my mind is doing something and I conclude that I don't like what it's doing, does that conclusion mean there's also inherently passion, aggression, or ignorance there? Even if
Could be, but it doesn't matter. It's some of that's going to be there, but you don't have to track it down and label it. You already know what it is. You know what passion is. You know what aggression is. You know what ignorance is. That's enough. Just watch what moves. And when you watch what moves, insofar as you can, you may not be able to do this. It's not about controlling and succeeding at it. Don't add or subtract or divide. Passion, aggression, ignorance again. Divide is ignorance, dividing yourself from knowing something, grasping something. Adding to something is passion. Subtracting is judging. Aggression. Go ahead.
Kelsey Bowing, so if I'm noticing that I'm making a conclusion that I don't like what my mind is doing, then that is not seeing what my mind is, it's adding. Right?
What? Did you say right? Did you want me to agree with you?
I don't know. What, Kelsey back, what is happening when I make a conclusion that I don't like something my mind is doing?
It's just protecting the self-centeredness. So you don't have to do anything with it. It's the path, where this path leads to as you go along, and you stop meddling with your own mind, you just receive whatever shows up, no matter how it smells, no matter how it tastes, no matter how it feels, no matter how it thinks. Receive, receive, receive. There's a separated form. There's a woman here, there's a man here, there's a woman here, a woman, a man. But so there is a separation, and that reinforces the illusion that we are separate. But the fundamental understanding is, even though you really actually understand that this is just a temporary situation, that who you are does not come to an end, because it has not started up. The body has started up, and you're what, 35 or something like that. So the body mind started up 35 years ago and going along, and at some point that'll come to an end. But who you are can't come to an end, because it has not occurred. It does not show up like something, like a person. So that's what you're working on. And so it is important to just watch what moves without adding. Watch what moves without subtracting or judging. And watch what moves without turning away or shutting down. That can take the rest of your life to do.
Kelsey Bang, so is thoroughly receiving fear, that would mean not concluding that you're receiving fear. It would just,
There could be some of that there too. So it's always about awareness, not what shows up in you. So all kinds of terrible things. You could actually be fearful and think about murdering somebody. I mean, anything can show up. That's why it's so terrifying to the ego, because the ego, once you start to realize that you're going to need to receive whatever shows up in your mind stream. As long as there's a self, there's going to be some kind of fear about being overwhelmed. Just like Adriana was talking about, when she starts to contemplate and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but when she starts to contemplate Pratitya Samutpada, dependent origination, she starts to get a little worried about that. And what I'm saying to her is, you haven't seen that the self that is part of dependent origination is unreal. It's unreal. It is an illusion, as is dependent origination. Just keep going, keep looking at it. Don't conclude, don't exclude, and don't ignore. And the practice, the awareness, is about seeing how much you continue to do that, and just be aware of that without trying to stop it, justify it. So in other words, don't double do anything. The first negativity is bad enough, but then if you put another negativity where you try to stop your ignorance, then it just gets more and more. It's like you know what a Dagwood sandwich is? That's right. Anyone? I see some elderly people here. Okay, tell her what a Dagwood sandwich is.
Very large sandwich.
It's very thick, so like you keep putting stuff on. Dagwood Bumstead, you know him? So he was a guy that lived back in the 40s or 50s, and he was a early TV personality. And
The funny papers on Sunday.
the funny papers on Sunday, back in the 50s. And anyway, he would start out making a sandwich and just get carried away and and pretty soon it was so thick you couldn't actually bite it. Dagwood.
thank you.
Yeah, don't add. Don't add. Nothing, just a sandwich with nothing in the middle. Or even the sandwich, that section. Don't even make a sandwich. Empty plate. Yes, sir.
We have the following question from Martin in Latvia.
Martin. Yes,
Martin bowing, who is attached to the illusion? Martin bowing.
the consciousness that is balled up in a knot in the heart center. To give you a good description, that thinks it is somebody. When that is seen to be unreal, it just unravels, it comes apart. It unravels in space. It isn't even in the body anymore. There isn't anyone. There never was anyone. It was all an illusion. And consciousness is liberated. And consciousness doesn't even need a body anymore. If there's a body, there's a body. And some consciousnesses may even be able to move from body to body. How do I know this? I don't know. I don't know it in the way of, I can write out an algorithm for it. It's just the case. So, and as I also say, when I make a statement like that, is don't believe me. Don't disbelieve me. Consider it. And consider it.
Music bowing. Seems like focusing on relative tasks off the cushion can do a pretty good job of covering up an emotion like fear. So is it possible to thoroughly receive fear off the cushion?
Yes.
Does that require not doing relative or not continuing to function?
Not adding, subtracting, or dividing, but as I said earlier, that takes a lot of time of seeing how you can't do that. It takes a lot of failure. The ego has to really fail a lot. It gets pretty difficult for the ego who's been practicing and practicing. And we've tried so hard, and yet we're, like it says here on this cup, somebody so generously gave to me. Where is it? Disappointment awaits. Pretty good cup. Disappointment. Go ahead.
Music bowing. Further question isn't.
Okay.
Oh, music bowing. What might it look like to thoroughly receive an emotion while functioning in a way that doesn't just cover that up?
You would have that feeling, have that emotion, and you wouldn't do anything with it. There would be no outflows. You wouldn't hook up your vocal cords. You would not need to get rid of it. You'd just receive it. You would just eat it, just like a foul odor. You just receive it. If it comes into your mind stream, into any of your sense fields, you have it coming. When I say you have it coming, excuse me, I'm not saying you're to blame, because there isn't anyone to blame. There's all dharmas are without blame. This is traditional teaching. It goes back centuries before we got here. All dharmas, anything that shows up, the dharma of Buddhism, the dharma of Dagwood sandwich, the dharma of anything is without a personhood that caused it. It is caused through dependent origination, because each human being with hands, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind is dependently arisen. Dance with life. Stop fighting it. And how do you do that? You have to watch the warfare for a while before you can actually lay down your weapons, which are what? Passion, aggression, ignorance. It's just a metaphor for it. Actually, there's nothing to lay down. Just see that it's been unreal from the start.
Sokuzan, why does it hurt if it's unreal?
Well, I could use an example here that may be helpful to you. Just like a nightmare is scary, but it's unreal. But while it's happening, it's like, and then we wake up and think, oh, so glad that pterodactyl that was nipping at my heels was unreal. No, that Mr. Pickowitz agrees with it. So it's like we see this as an illusion. Very difficult to sit across from someone. Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your next door neighbor, maybe it's someone in the Sangha spiritual community, something that is critical of you or blaming you or whatever, and just see that it's unreal. And just because they believe in the illusion doesn't mean that you need to do that and fight back. That also doesn't mean that you agree with them. very, very difficult area to work with, but it is unreal, just like a nightmare, like a dream. Like it says in the Tibetan tradition, one of the teachings there that I've repeated every now and then, I think Chazan probably has also in teaching, is that the dream that you have at night is a sample dream. It shows you this is a dream. This is, you just dreamt this and it's unreal. And this is the actual dream. This, awaken from this. You might ask me, and you could if you wanted to. Well, so do that. If you, this is a dream. If you awakened from this dream, go ahead and ask me.
Have you awakened from this dream?
Who said that? Of
Adriana bowing.
course not. If I awaken from this dream, I can't help you. I have to be right here in the middle of the nightmare with you. What's different about it? Why would I say that you should awaken when I don't claim that I will have awakened? Go ahead.
Charlotte, are you pointing beyond what you're looking at?
Always. If I just point what I'm looking at, then you guys will disagree with me and say, I don't see that. You're getting warm there, but I don't want you to get hot. So. Oh, you're pretty hot. Go ahead.
So going, is that a way of talking about intention?
Hmm?
Is that,
I was talking to Jim too. Go ahead.
are you talking about intention with that?
Yes. See how proud of myself I am.
He did turn up the AC right when we got into the Zendo.
Who turned up the AC?
Shoto.
Turn it down.
You turned it down to save electricity of the temperature. You turned down the temperature. So that's, I'm very dyslexic when it comes to numbers. So does that mean it's getting warmer?
He's not.
Well, why would you turn it down unless it's getting warmer? Heather,
I'm dyslexic. Heather Bowen, I'm dyslexic. I have no idea.
yeah, I know, yeah, like we talked about earlier, I don't know how to run computers. I mean, I own a couple, but I always have to get somebody to, where do you go? How do you do this? Yes,
Yishinbao,
Jishin
is grace a part of dependent origination?
is what?
Is grace a part of dependent origination?
Grace.
Great,
It's great.
Grace. Grace like
Grace.
contact.
grapes, grapes.
It's making fun of me.
Why not making fun of you? What is it? Do you know what the word is? See, I wasn't making fun. She didn't, oh, did you hear it?
Yeah,
What is it?
grace.
Oh, path of grace. Ah, oh, ask that question again.
Is grace a part of dependent
Completely.
origination?
That's the only question you have?
When two arrows meet,
Two arrows meet is grace,
is grace.
yes. Now, you can't find it. And why? It's already the case, it's already here, you already are the Buddha, you're not separate from the awakened one. But you have to realize it. Otherwise, it just becomes kind of a daydream or, you know, or what, if I'm the Buddha, why do I feel like crap? Well, return to the first noble truth and you'll find out, because he didn't mince words when he said, life is suffering. And even though there's three more, you need to look at the first one before you go to the second one. Go ahead.
Divine, you said, you began your talk with everything is awake, and you just said that you are not awake.
I did.
That's what I heard. Maybe I didn't understand that.
What did you hear?
If everything is awake, are you awake?
You really want to go there? I can go. You want me to go there?
Yes.
There isn't anyone, so there's no one to be awake. How can I possibly be awake?
So how can everything be awake?
Well, everything else
Is that-
everything else is, I'm addressing people who think there's someone. I'm telling you, you're awake. And when you realize it, then that may not be quite so solid a platform. I'm awake. That's what happens when you awaken. That part that is trying to awaken comes apart, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. Has to be done. You have to do it. I will help you do it. I will push on you with your permission. If I don't have your permission, I will mind my own business, as I've been doing. Yes, so yes, Madame.
Beyond bowing, then who is left to not care about how you feel?
There isn't anyone left. That's why you don't care how you feel, because there's no one there that cares. There's just consciousness only. But the consciousness still feels. And there's still nerve endings. There's still nerve endings. There's still nerve endings. There's still the five sense feels and the sense of thinking in the sixth consciousness and the seventh and the eighth. More.
Beyond bowing, when you say you won't care how you feel, I'm wondering what you're talking about.
I'm saying you won't care how you feel.
I know.
I'm saying you'll still have emotions, but you won't add anything onto it. Like you won't keep it. It'll just be that feeling. Something happened, and then that might evoke or trigger some kind of emotion or feeling. But then it starts to come apart. But the ego mind doesn't want it to come apart. It wants revenge, or it wants justification. It wants to know why the hell this is happening or who caused this. And it creates story after story after story after story. Laminates the stories right on top of each other. Instead of the first stories, crazy enough. Just don't do anything more with it. Just receive it. Just receive the fragrance or the odor of whatever shows up in the mind stream as much as you can. And don't necessarily give yourself credit for an accomplishment. Takes a while. You know? Is there a final question anywhere in here or on?
Navid bowing.
Navid, go ahead.
When you say you're still in this dream with us, is that like you're in a lucid dream, but you decide to stay in the dream?
I wouldn't get that fancy. It's simpler than that. It's ordinary. It's nothing particularly special. It feels like nothing's happening. And just like His Holiness the 17th, or rather the 16th Carmichael said in 1981, and I keep reciting this because it's a teaching I've contemplated since I first heard it in 1981. Nothing happens. Doesn't mean that things aren't happening. It just means that whatever's happening is unreal. So therefore, nothing actually does occur. You can realize that.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. I think we can close now. Thank you so much for your questions and for your attention.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho-san Shi-Fu Shi-Son Bu-Sa-Mo-Ko-Sa The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita.
To
you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shikantaza. Happy birthday to you.
What's the other part of that? How old old are you? 34, you guys. So you can do it too, 34. He's a monk, he's only 34. Do I get to leave now? I get to. Are we going for a bike ride?
Not yet.
Who's the cabanas that? Okay.
We'll return to sitting here in the Zendo and we'll start evening service in about 20 minutes.